Hello and welcome to IGPP Expert Talks. I am Heena Goswami, Editorial Consultant with IGPP, Institute for Governance, Policies and Politics, New Delhi. On the first Monday of November 2024, the US citizens will elect their next president. The election in US has raised considerable excitement in India as well. However, the electoral procedure of the US is deeply rooted in the history of the nation and has evolved as per the needs of the time. And hence, the subtleties and nuances of the electoral procedure might be lost on us at times. With this context in mind, IGPP is beginning an educational series to introduce the audience to the various facets of the election procedures and shed light on their historicity. A short clip would explain the electoral procedure within the context of the historical circumstances within which they emerged, and then an in-depth conversation with an expert on the same theme would be held. The program would also reflect on the various issues that are important to the American voters, and this in turn would acquaint the audience with the social and cultural complexities of the US. The program would further reflect upon the consequences of the voters' choice on the larger world with particular focus on India and highlight the role played by Indian and other diaspora communities in the US elections. Today, we explore the form of government in the US and highlight the differences between the presidential system of government in the United States and the parliamentary system in India. In India, a parliamentary system prevails. Here, the Prime Minister, elected by the majority party in the Lok Sabha, serves as the executive head, while the President holds a ceremonial position as the constitutional head of state. Conversely, in the United States, a presidential system reigns. The President not only serves as the head of state, but also as the head of government, elected separately from the legislative branch. While India sees citizens electing representatives to the Lok Sabha, whose majority party forms the government, the US employs an electoral college system to elect the president with a focus on states' votes. In India, a government can be dissolved if it loses a vote of no confidence, leading to midterm elections. Meanwhile, in the US, the president serves a fixed term unless impeached or incapacitated. These systems reflect distinct approaches to governance, with India emphasizing collective responsibility and the US accentuating the executive's power. In the United States, the government operates with three separate branches: the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch. First up, we have the legislative branch embodied by Congress. This primary legislative body is divided into two chambers. The Senate, the upper house, consists of two senators from each state, serving 6-year terms. They debate legislation, confirm presidential appointments, and ratify treaties. The House of Representatives, the lower house, is based on state population. Representatives serve 2-year terms, introduce and vote on bills, and represent their constituents. Moving on to the executive branch, where the president serves as the head. Elected every 4 years, the president enforces laws, makes foreign policy decisions, and appoints federal judges and executive agency heads. The president's cabinet, composed of department heads, manages specific areas of governance such as foreign affairs and defense. Lastly, we have the judicial branch, headed by the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. With 9 justices nominated by the President and confirmed by the Senate, The Supreme Court interprets the constitutions and reviews laws. Beneath the Supreme Court, various federal and state courts handle legal matters, including Circuit Court of Appeal and district courts. The US government operates under a system of checks and balances, ensuring that no single branch becomes too powerful. For instance, the presidents can veto legislation passed by Congress, but Congress can confirm or reject a presidential nominee. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court can overturn unconstitutional laws. At the heart of the judiciary lies the power of judicial review. The Supreme Court and other federal courts possess the authority to declare laws or presidential actions unconstitutional if they violate the principles outlined in the US Constitution. This power acts as a safeguard, ensuring that legislative and executive actions align with the Constitution, preventing overreach by any branch of government. The President also plays a significant role in shaping the judiciary through presidential appointments. With the authority to appoint federal judges, including Supreme Court justices, the President influences the direction of the federal courts. These appointments can shape legal interpretations and decisions for years to come. Moreover, the legislative branch, represented by the House of Representatives, holds the power of impeachment over federal judges, including Supreme Court justices. If a judge is found guilty of treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors, they can be impeached. The Senate then conducts the trial, potentially leading to the removal of the judge from office. This process serves as a mechanism to hold judges accountable for their actions, reinforcing the principle of checks and balances within the judiciary. Furthermore, the judiciary acts as a check on the executive branch, ensuring that the President does not exceed their constitutional authority. When the legality or constitutionality of the President's action is challenged in the court, the judiciary evaluates them, maintaining the integrity of the Constitution and the rule of law. In summary, the judiciary plays a crucial role in preserving the balance of power in the United States, preventing any single branch from becoming too powerful and ensuring that all actions adhere to the principles of the Constitution. Now let's shift our focus to the 2024 US presidential election and the notable contenders from both major parties. Representing the Democratic Party is the incumbent President Joe Biden. Biden faces no significant competition within his party and seeks re-election amidst a challenging political landscape. His presidency has been marked by various domestic and international challenges, including high inflation and significant industrial policy bills. Biden's administration prioritizes addressing climate change, healthcare reforms, and advancing social justice issues. The Democratic Party generally leans toward progressive policies, emphasizing social welfare, environmental protection, and civil rights. On the other side, representing the Republican Party is the former President, Donald Trump. Trump has effectively secured the Republican nomination, setting the stage for a rematch with Biden. The Republican Party traditionally advocates for conservative values, including limited government intervention, free market economies, and a strong national defense. As we approach the election day on November 5, 2024, the election is expected to intensify, with each candidate vying to sway voters with their respective platforms and visions for the future. The stakes are high, and the outcome of this election will shape the trajectory of the nation for years to come. Now that we have examined the contenders in the upcoming US presidential election, let us take a closer look at the major political parties and their membership. First up, we have the Democratic Party, known for its social liberalism and progressive policies. The Democratic Party boasts a membership of approximately 47.2 million members. In the 2020 presidential election, their candidate Joe Biden secured 81.3 million votes, clinching the presidency. Democrats hold 51 out of 100 seats in the Senate and 212 out of 435 seats in the House of Representatives. They lead in 3 out of 6 gubernatorial races and hold a significant portion of state legislative seats. On the other side, we have the Republican Party, known for its conservatism and free market economics. Founded in the 1850s, the Republican Party has a membership of approximately 25 million. In the 2020 presidential election, their candidate Donald Trump received 74.2 million votes. Republicans currently hold 49 out of 100 seats in the Senate and 223 out of 435 seats in the House of Representatives. They lead in 28 out of 55 gubernatorial races and hold a significant portion of state legislative seats. It is important to note that besides the major parties, there are several third parties in the US political landscape, such as the Libertarian Party and the Green Party. While they have small memberships and limited electoral success, they contribute to the diversity of ideas in American politics. Remember, party membership can vary state by state, and the political landscape remains dynamic, with ongoing shifts in party dynamics and voter preferences. In this context, to share with us how the US government works, what are its major organs, and what the role does the US president plays, we are joined by Mr. Ardian Maloku. Mr. Ardian has been working with the US government for past few years and is part of the US Embassy in New Delhi. Welcome to IGPP Expert Talk, sir.
Thank you for having me.
So, as the US is set for the presidential elections, please tell us a little about the US's form of governance. We in India have a parliamentary form of government. That is not the case in the US, right? What is it?
Thank you. Thanks again for having me, and it's an honor to be here. So the design of the U.S. government from the beginning was for it to be a representative republic, meaning that it's a government by the people, for the people, a government where every citizen has a voice into the political affairs in the U.S. And the power sharing in the U.S. by the founders, by the fathers, was that we have a government that never becomes too powerful, which requires for checks and balances on the different branches of government. So you have the presidency, which is part of the executive branch. You have Congress, which has two chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. And then you have the judicial branch, the U.S. Supreme Court as well. So each branch has their own role to play in the overall running of the government. And the purpose, again, from the very beginning, was so that no one branch of government becomes too powerful. So the House of Representatives, for example, they hold elections every 2 years. And the intention, again, from the beginning, the historical intention there was that those would be the representatives that are closest to the people, and people who are pretty much on the ground on different districts throughout the U.S., and they get voted every 2 years. The House of Representatives, for example, has 435 members. Again, those are lawmakers. In the U.S. Congress, there's 435 members in the House of Representatives. Each each state gets a specific number in the House of Representatives, depending on the population size. So Alaska, for example, it has a huge territory, but its population is smaller. Therefore, Alaska, for example, has one representative in the U.S. House of Representatives, whereas California, which is the most populous state, gets 55 seats in the U.S. House of Representatives. And again, that's how all the states are. There's a census that's taken every 10 years to measure the population of the states, and then those seats can change based on the population changes as well. So the House of Representatives, again, has 435 representatives. Those are people from different districts, from different states, because the U.S. is very diverse. It's a huge country, large territory, and you have like smaller districts throughout different states that elect a representative to send to the U.S. Congress, and then that person is supposed to be there to represent the needs of their constituents back home in that particular district. So that's how elections for the House of Representatives work. Then you have the U.S. Senate, which is the other chamber of Congress. The U.S. Senate, you have 2 senators from every state. So it's not dependent on population or size or like that. Every state, big or small, gets 2 senators in there. So the U.S. Senate has 100 senators, whereas the House of Representatives, 435. And then you have the U.S. presidency, which is held every 4 years. It is always held in November. It is always the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. So you don't have to wait for elections to be announced or for parties to decide on what a date is. The date is already set. So you can look down 50 years from now and you can look at a calendar and you'll know exactly when the election in that year is going to be held.
I would like you to shed a little light on how the different organs that you mentioned, Congress, Senate, work, and the President's office work in tandem with each other or keep a check on each other's?
So again, there's many examples on that, but the quickest example that comes to mind right now that I can think of is bills are introduced in the U.S. Congress. Bills are brought to the House of Representatives and the Senate, and then bills, if they pass both chambers, they can become law. Whenever a law is passed, it usually goes to the desk of the President. Before it becomes law, the President has to sign. The President has the power to veto that bill or that law. However, if the President chooses to veto it, he can go back to Congress again, and then Congress can overwrite the presidential veto by getting 2/3 of the votes. So that's like one of the checks that comes to mind right now that I can think. But there's many other examples of how the different branches check the other ones so that no one branch ever becomes too powerful.
What about the Senate and the judiciary, especially? Like, in India, judiciary is a completely different organ of the government, not appointed by any of the other legislative or executive branches. How does judiciary work in the U.S.?
So, again, that would be like a discussion for a whole other time, and there's a lot into it. But U.S. Supreme Court judges, they're appointed for life. So the president appoints a judge, and they serve there for life. So the only time they leave or get replaced is if they die while they're in office, or they retire in time, and then the president again nominates someone. He goes again through Congress to get confirmation there. There's hearings, and then that person, once they become a Supreme Court justice, they serve a lifetime. They can serve the terms are for life. There's no limits.
Tell us a little about this election. Who are the main candidates and what ideas, parties do they represent?
So again, the presidential election held every 4 years. They're held in November. It's the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, presidents campaign throughout the country, and they fight for electoral votes. So in the U.S., we have a unique system. We have the Electoral College. Those are electors from every state, depending on, there's a total of 538 electors. And the 538 comes from, again, the House of Representatives has 435 members. So that's 435 electors there. You add the 100 senators there, that becomes 535. And then you have DC, which has 3 of the electoral votes. So the design there and the intention behind that is that presidents go throughout the whole country looking for those electoral votes. In the US, for example, it could happen where candidates might win the popular vote. They might get the most votes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they will become president, because it's all about the electoral votes. So again, there's 538 electoral votes that are up for grabs. And in order to be elected, whoever reaches 207 first, that person, we know that person is going to be the next president. The candidates, again, right now, we have our current president, the incumbent president, Joe Biden, and there's not a convention held yet for the Republican Party. It's expected to happen later this summer, but the incumbent for the Republican, the nominee for the Republican Party is expected to be Donald Trump.
Also, we in India have a lot of parties because we are a politically opinionated people. Why just 2 parties in US though? US is geographically a vast country, and you have different kinds of people who have come over the years and settled in US. So why just two parties?
Most certainly. So again, the U.S. is unique in its form of governance. Again, the intention is for it to be a representative democracy. And it differs quite a bit from parliamentary democracies. We have independents. There are people in the middle. They lean more towards one side or the other, but they're independent. A lot of times, the 2 main parties, they compete to convey a message that is more aligned with those independent votes. And oftentimes, those independent votes, shift the election whichever way, whichever side, the left or the right, does a better job of convincing those voters that are in the middle to go their way. It could make a difference.
So how fluid is the system of party affiliation? Again, the point of departure from India, that we are quite flexible that way. We keep changing parties. Our leaders, they do change parties. In US, I understand there's a system of membership of even the voters who are members of a party, and then they vote. So do members, patrons, leaders, do they change parties in the US? And how fluid and flexible is that system?
Sure, that's a good question. Again, every American has a voice and a choice. That's the biggest thing that I can. That's the best way I can put it, I guess. Every American has a voice and a choice. The choice belongs to every individual American. There's nothing that says that if you are a member of this party, that you cannot switch tomorrow and go to the other party and vice versa. So the choice is just for the individuals. Again, elections are very important. They're organized. Elections are organized at the local level. There's a lot of volunteers. There's a lot of people that get involved every election year, just to make sure that everyone's choice and voice is heard, and that everyone has a say to whatever the future government is going to look like. And as I mentioned earlier, it's meant to be representative. Communities change throughout America. People move, people change, and if the intention again of the founders of the Republic of the United States was that those people are the representatives in the House are close to the people in their home state, and the frequency of elections. They're held every 2 years, whereas Senate is, they serve 6-year terms. It's a little different in the Senate, but the House of Representatives, their elections are held every 2 years, and that does the intention. So the composition changes, communities change, the representation. People might want someone that they feel better represents their needs, and so on and so forth.